Welcome to Heels, Handbags, and Hustle. Step in faith, carry love, pursue God's calling. This is your host, Rachel Earp, and I'm so delighted that you found my show. My podcast is dedicated to encouraging women to be more bold, confident, and secure in their work and femininity. I've had the privilege of bringing on many outstanding women who share their journeys, stories, and successes with us. I believe women should embrace their God-given gifts and abilities without the entanglements of fear, comparison, or past mistakes. As a wife, business owner, and mom of 2 boys, one with Down syndrome, I have found such joy in the community of supportive women. My prayer is that this podcast elevates each person who listens and inspires a closer walk with God. Now, let's get to it, friends. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Heels, Handbags, and Hustle podcast. I'm so glad you're here and that you're tuning in today from wherever you are. And if you're new to the show and this is your first time, you're in for a treat. You landed on a great episode. I have Emilie Toups here, and she is such an amazing lady. She's a proud mom of 5, a homesteader, and the owner of Toups Co Organics, which is a skincare and makeup brand dedicated to creating the cleanest products on the market. And I can personally attest to that, and we'll get into that more later. But Emilie was first introduced to non-toxic skincare when she healed her daughter's eczema with tallow balm. Which is an ancient remedy made from beef fat. So if you guys don't know what tallow is, that explains it. And then since then, Emilie has become a pioneer for ancestral skincare. I love that. And non-toxic living, inventing and reimaging products that are effective and safe enough to eat. So Emilie, this is phenomenal. Thank you for coming on the show today. I cannot wait to dive more into this. But welcome, and just tell our listeners a little bit. I know I kind of gave a overall bio on who you are, but tell us a little bit more, like, where are you from?
Hey, Rachel, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here. My husband and I both are from Louisiana. We were born and raised there. We have now settled in South Alabama, which we absolutely love. All of our family is still Cajuns from South Louisiana, and we love to visit. And that's, really our heritage. But we live in Alabama. We were able to just get more land here and kind of have our farm. And that's where we founded Toups Co. And so now we're here for good, and we really love it. But yeah, so I want to just start by kind of telling the story of Toups Co. because obviously it's my favorite and it's my baby. But you kind of hit on Elise, our oldest, had really severe eczema. She had it all over her arms and like on her belly and her legs behind, and it was just oozing and bleeding. And, we did all of the traditional things. We were at the pediatrician. We had tried steroid creams and things like that. And really, if I wouldn't have had the doctor tell me there was nothing that we could do, there's nothing we could do, she might or may not grow out of it. They kind of gave us that like absolute. And I'm kind of pretty, like headstrong. Like I think that I can do anything. And when someone was like, you can do nothing, this cannot be healed, it really ignited like this passion or this fire inside of me. And I was like, that cannot be, right. And I started to just research and read and peer reviewed studies and blogs and all this, anything I can get my hands on, because I was willing to do it all to try to get rid of this. And so originally I stumbled upon the Weston A. Price Foundation and the GAPS diet, which is just very ancestral. It's whole foods. And then the GAPS diet is more of like boiled meats and broths and just healing the gut. It is very gut healing centered. And so if you want to like read more about the GAPS diet, you can get the book, and maybe you can put that in the show notes. It's called Gut and Psychology Syndrome by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. And so that was like the first part. Okay. And so once we started to heal her from the inside, I immediately, like the next step was like all the products that we use, the laundry detergent that we're washing her clothes in. And I read about tallow because I was just on this quest for knowledge on what to do. How can we fix this? And so I came across tallow and I didn't know a whole lot about it. And so I reached out to a local farmer. They had a grass-fed farmer. We were living in Mississippi at the time. And so I just called them up and asked, could I get some tallow? And her response was, what is that? And so I was like, oh, well, it's like the fat, it's like unrendered. It would just be raw. And so she's like, well, I have to ask the butcher to get that back. At the time, the butcher, and still a lot of farmers are not getting it back from the butcher just because they don't have a market for it.
Yeah.
And so, and times have changed a little bit. I think it's a little more common now than then, just because of ancestral eating is a lot more popular now. Mm-hmm. But she got me this small little 5-pound pack. It's frozen of this raw suet, the kidney fat. And we met on the side of the road on a Sunday afternoon. And that was the first time I had ever gotten tallow. So I went home and rendered it down and then strained it. And I had this golden melted tallow. And so I just started slathering it all over her because, I didn't make it into anything else. I just wanted tallow. And I read that it was so great. So at the time I was putting like Aquaphor or some kind of like something coating her legs at night. And then I would put like really thick, like winter stockings on top. So it would stop her from like scratching it in the night and it bleeding. And instead, I just started putting the tallow. So I put the tallow all over her, put her stockings on, and I would put like a long sleeve onesie so she could sleep at night. And at one point, we were even putting mittens on her hands. And so we saw such a dramatic, like, response in the first night, like from really red and inflamed to waking up. And obviously the eczema was still there, but the redness and inflammation had like been pulled out. And I woke up the next day and I was checking it, expecting like a miracle. And when I looked at it, I was so shocked. So I was like, this is so great. I've never put animal-based products on her skin before. That had the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, which is, the conjugated linoleic acid, which is also in tallow. So that's feeding her skin with nutrients, which it desperately needed. And then fatty acids that are really anti-inflammatory. And I was just coating her in it. And so at the time, I was like, this is so great. I started making it into tallow balms. And obviously, I was really young and very excited. I was telling everybody I knew. And kind of had a little bit of a negative pushback, like, oh, that's so gross. Or you're putting what? Did I hear you right? And so I truly believe that the Lord put that information in front of me because we just were so desperate and we needed it. She needed it. And so with the combination of both the tallow and gut healing protocol, I guess it took us, trial and error, maybe a year, but she finally was eczema free. And I was I almost wanted to go back to that pediatrician and say, we did it. Like I researched and I, looked at all the information and there's more out there than what I was given. And so, I started making them and selling them on Etsy because friends and family wanted them and we lived out of town. So I would just put some when I had an extra batch up on Etsy and sell them. And really that's how Toups Co was born. It was not, I didn't set out to have like a business. I was really just looking to help her and her eczema. And so that is the story of how it just kind of all started. Obviously, it's majorly snowballed since then.
Yes, girl. That's amazing. How special, though.
That's our origin story.
That is amazing. And I love that. I think one of the things, too, when I can kind of relate in a little bit with, we had not a similar story as far as like the eczema or that, but when our youngest son was born and they told us that he had Down syndrome, I'll never forget the first doctor visit that we had. And she sat us down and told us all of the things that he would not be able to do. And, many health issues and stuff that were unavoidable. And Well, and I would ask questions like, well, what can we do? And that is where our quest started, to really learn and figure out nutrition, because it wasn't something we were brought up knowing. And that when you're a parent, especially that mama bear thing comes out, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to help. If even if it just helps to a first degree, like anything to add some type of value or relief or whatever I need to do for my baby.
Mhm.
And that is a very powerful force that even doctors can't, reckon with, right? I
Yeah.
love that. I love that so much. Um, so it started to snowball and more people started, wanting your products. How did you go from that point where it was just turning into a small business into all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's a lot of demand, and I got to get this supply up to par. How did you go from that transition? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So at the time, I guess it was like end of 2000, it was 2015. There wasn't a lot of other tallow balm companies at all, maybe one or two. And so we started making tallow, and like the first big leap was just like kind of getting off of Etsy and getting serious about it and getting our own website. So we did that, and still only had just, I think just tallow bombs. And so anyways, we just looked for the next product. So the next, like as I was going through my makeup bag or like the products that I was using or the products that I thought she might be using, I was like, okay, let's come up with the next thing. So like the next thing I think was like deodorant. And I know you said like all of a sudden it turned into something else. But is years of really just
Yeah.
putting the time in and just kind of staying steady at it. Kind of had a plan to grow it, kind of just kept having babies. And so every time I'd have another baby, kind of take a break. I remember it was so fun. I would put like this big banner across the website, and it was like, website or Toups Co closed for like the next 4 weeks, we'll reopen on this date. And then now it's like I can't even imagine doing that now. Yes.
Yeah.
But
Um,
anyways, it so honestly, I had started and I was doing it on the side. I was homeschooling my kids. I was running the farm and kind of milking the cows and doing all the things. And my husband I guess in 2016 or 2017, lost his job and decided to kind of do a career change. And so when he he was like working on the coast and doing welding and working with in some of the fabrication yards, he went get a CWI license, which is inspections for the welds. And so then he was traveling, and he would be gone weeks. Sometimes the jobs would be months. Sometimes he would, be in different states and come back a couple of weekends a month. And so during that time is when I kind of like had the time, because he wasn't there, to be like, I'm going to focus on this. Maybe if I can supplement some of our income, he wouldn't be gone as much. And that was just my own personal drive to like continue to grow the business, to keep him home so that he wouldn't have to travel. And
love
so I
that.
just, kept doing more things and adding more products as I looked in our makeup bag and as it was feasible to add, with the goal of, if I can replace Trent's income, he could be home. And,
Yeah.
farming is a lot of work. So when he would be
Imagine.
gone, I remember having 3 kids in the house and having the baby in the swing, and everyone is like taking a nap at the same time. And I'd run outside to cut grass for a little while, or I'd run
Wow.
outside and like feed animals. And I'm not saying it like for any pity. I really enjoyed that time. I was home full time with the kids.
Mhm.
We fed animals and worked on the farm together. Toups Co. and the tallow was just, maybe an hour or two a day is kind of how I worked on that. And I really enjoyed the time. I just wanted him to be able to be home. And so that
Yeah.
was like the driving force behind growing Toups, because at first I just was wanting to make tallow bombs and was
Yeah.
really excited to share them with everyone. So
Aw.
that's kind of how we got to where we are
Yeah.
today, is that desire to bring him home, which
It's a
obviously
good
we have.
motivator.
Yeah.
It's a good motivator. And it is hard too when, you're by yourself a lot and raising the kids and taking care of, I can only imagine what, even though it sounds like you were enjoying that season as much as you could, but, because that's what you love. And that was that beautiful life that you've worked hard to create. But it's definitely wonderful knowing that your spouse can just kind of be there more often. And that's a great motivating factor. And that was actually what first drew me to your products was the tallow balms.
Yes.
I was looking for, obviously when you go into stores and even shopping online, or you just are so confused because there is a lot of greenwashing. Which I didn't even know what that word was for the longest time. I was just like, oh, this is safe, this is clean, this is toxin-free, and, all this stuff that the buzzwords that you hear out there. But we had started exploring more into tallow-based products that we were eating and feeding our children, trying to cook differently, changing our lifestyle so much. So I happened to see on, I think it was Instagram, like an ad or something, and they just sounded so beautiful. And I was like, you know what? I am just going to order these and put them on my husband's feet. He would kill me if he knew I said this now. But
I love that.
I was like, yes, this is what I want to use, because that's something that him and I do like together every night is we give each other a little foot massage. That's a special time where we give and we relax. And I thought, oh, he probably, because he's all into all this tallow and the beef and like all this stuff. He's going to love this.
Yeah.
So we started with that. And I was as soon as I opened the container, I loved just the feel of it. I got a package of 3 where a couple of them had a beautiful scent. I forget the name of the one, but it's my favorite. And I just fell in love with it. I started using it on my face and on my butt. I was like, I can use this everywhere, like my children. So then I was like, well, what else does this Toups Co have on their website? What else can I order? So I have so much. I have the lip balms, and I love your makeup line. I love that I could use the foundation and the highlighter that I'm wearing. And you have such a wonderful variety of products that are, I think, especially the ones that we grab and use the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I was so impressed with that. And I'm sure, like you said, it's not something that happened overnight, but I love that you were able to expand your product line to really give people options and feel good about what they're putting. And like I mentioned earlier when I was sharing about you, that you like safe enough to eat, like that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
I love hearing like the customer journey of starting with like, and I say that all the time on team meetings. I say they come for the tallow and they stay for the rest.
Hey everyone, interrupting this episode super quick to just share with you guys this beautiful tallow balm that we've been talking about in this episode, and let you know that compliments of listening to Heels, Handbags, and Hustle, Emilie Toups is offering a 15% discount on the products, on anything that you would like to try. Just use the code Rachel15 at checkout, and I will make sure to drop it in the show notes for you guys. What better time than to give grass-fed beef tallow products a try for your skin and for your family? This is something that if I didn't feel strongly and passionately about, I wouldn't even be offering you guys. So I hope that as you're listening, you'll feel educated, that you'll feel empowered, and that this can be one thing that you can try and make a change for your family. I guarantee that you will love the products as much as I do. So don't forget, use the code Rachel15 for your 15% discount at checkout.
And that's kind of like the strategy is that's what brings them in, is the tallow balms, because they are, they're our bread and butter. They're what I'm most passionate about. I cannot go a day without them. Like if we're traveling and I leave my freaking balm home, I will ship myself another one, because I'm like, what else do you use on your skin? Is there anything else? So it's every new product that we release is like a baby to me. I pour over all the ingredients and the sourcing, and I want this amazing product for myself. And so I want it to be so great. And then when we finally settle on something and I just absolutely love it, then it's ready to release to everyone else. And so a big quick question that we get is like, do you do animal testing? Do you, are you cruelty free? And obviously we don't do animal testing because you would like test chemicals to see if like someone had a reaction. There's no like toxic products at all in the ingredients. So I have 5 sisters. We test them on ourselves. I send them samples, and like that is our testing,
Yeah.
is trying them on ourselves, using them for extended period of time. And then, we still do some like stability testings and things like that that's required. But as far as for formulations, it's just on us. And, we say it's not good enough for you until it's good enough for our family, because it's so true. It's so
Yeah,
true.
that's amazing. I really love that. And I would love to know too your thoughts on some of the misconceptions I think that people have on what is toxin free and what is non-toxic. What are the differences? Is there any such thing? I mean, it's very overwhelming, especially when you're just starting on that journey where you're like, okay, I'm going to throw everything in the trash and just, try to, how do you navigate that? Do you get that? Do you have people
I get
ask?
that question a lot. And honestly, anyone can say anything they want about their products. And
Mhm.
so they can say they're non-toxic or toxin-free or all these big buzzwords are, it's natural, which is, all natural is the biggest one, and honestly, it really comes down to the consumer. So
Yeah.
I truly believe that we have a responsibility to read the ingredients and be knowledgeable enough to know what we're putting on our skin and in our bodies.
Mhm.
And it's not up to a governing body, whether that be the government or the FDA or any regulation company. It's really not up to them. And so I think that's kind of how we got in this situation in the first place,
Right.
is thinking that it's okay to let someone else tell us what's healthy for us
That's right.
or what's good enough to put on our skin. And so I'm a huge advocate for education around ingredients and empowering consumers to have enough knowledge to be able to choose ingredients on their own, no matter what the front of the package says.
That's
And
really
so
good.
when you're going through, anywhere, Target or a store, and you're picking something out, a cleaner, a deodorant, or anything, a shampoo, and you're looking at the front and it's got pretty green leaves on it, so it looks organic,
Yep.
or made with organic ingredients, is on the front, all natural, toxin free, whatever words you want to see. 9 times out of 10, if you flip it around and you're reading the ingredients, there's going to be something in there that
Yeah.
you don't want to see or you don't want on your body, especially in a big box store. So my advice to people who are wondering, like, how do I navigate? How do I know what is healthy and what's good enough, is to just Google the ingredients and get some knowledge around like the basic ones. Fragrance is the top every time. If a product says fragrance on the back, or perfume, or any of these buzzwords that are not buzzwords, but words that they use to hide or mask this, I think it's up to like 3,600 chemicals can be used in just the word fragrance be put on the label, because basically it's considered a trade secret. And that kind of came around during the like era where people were trademarking their perfume scents, Dior and Chanel, and they wanted their fragrance to be proprietary. And
Mhm.
so when that law passed a very, very long time ago, has never been updated, every company has the right to put the word fragrance or perfume on the back and not disclose anything that makes that fragrance up.
Yeah.
And so most, if not all of them, are hormone disrupting fragrances. And I don't know if you've heard the term, but there are studies that come out and they compare artificial fragrance as the like new secondhand smoke. And that's how bad it is for our bodies and our hormone health and our children. And
Yeah.
so honestly, that's just the biggest one. If I saw that on a product, then I definitely wouldn't be using it. But there are others too. And just taking a little bit of time. You don't have to be like a whiz at all of these different ingredients, but taking a little bit of time to understand a few preservatives that you want to avoid, obviously
Yeah.
fragrance and some other things like that, goes a really long way in looking at the front of the package and the back and understanding what the actual ingredients are. Can you pronounce them? Do you know what they are?
Yeah.
And, as women and as mothers, I consider myself the gatekeeper of what comes in our home. So whether that be food, products, I'm making those decisions of what we're going to use in our home, not our kids.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make those decisions for them in their best interest. And I think it's my job to be at
Mm-hmm.
least educated enough to know what they're consuming and what they're putting on their body. So I just like to encourage people to just to know and to take that responsibility upon themselves, because no one is, there isn't anyone out there that's protecting us from what's in the products. And the FDA, as you see, I think sometimes the misconception is that it's on the store shelf, so it must be safe. And as that's not the truth. And so just a
No.
little bit of research can go a really long way.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love too that you mentioned the sometimes you can't be deceived by like the icons or the leaves or the words and things like that. And I know back in the day, I thought I was so naive with that, because and at first it starts with you don't know what you don't know. But I started learning, I'm going to start looking up, like, what are these words that I don't know how to pronounce? And let's start with those words because I don't know what those are. And that was when I first started. I would stand. Sometimes, yeah, it would take me longer to do my shopping. And now I go beyond that and I really get to know the brand. And that was what I was so impressed with you about, was that was the first thing I did too, before I even made the purchase. Was I'm like, okay, who are they? What are they about? Where is this sourced? What is their integrity? And then
Mhm.
I saw that, that you were a mom and that it was, based as a small business. I just loved that. And I knew, you could just tell from the heart behind your products that it was going to be good. It was going to be safe. And I felt good about that. And I think we're so used as a society, we're so used to the convenience of just running and just getting stuff off the store shelf. And now it's getting to a point where we might have to source this differently than the convenience of getting everything at Target.
Okay.
I can get everything from my groceries to, stuff for my house and the kids' clothes. And we're so used to all of that that I personally have gone more and more to, I guess you would call it like boutique shopping, or, supporting the smaller businesses and getting to know their why. And like you said, education is so important. And there's a lot of different ways that you can find this information. I started listening to a lot of podcasts.
Mhm.
And actually, one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to is I think it's the Homegrown podcast.
Liz.
Yes, well, yes, those Hazelmeyer.
I love
And
Liz.
I guess I know them too.
Yeah, Liz is a friend of mine. I think her
Okay.
podcast, I recommend it to everyone. I think it's so
Me
great.
too. Me too. I started sending it to all my mama friends, and a lot of them, of course, thought I was crazy. But I didn't find the information, even though I guess you could say it was a lot, but I didn't find it overwhelming. I found it very invigorating and refreshing that I could learn
Yeah, very
this.
achievable.
Yeah, just so much that I learned. And that is a gift. Knowledge is a gift. Sometimes people look at it as a curse, but I mean, there are times where it can be a lot, but it is actually truly a gift when you have that knowledge. And once you do have the knowledge, it is so hard to go back
It
to
is.
anything
Yeah.
else, like you cringe at the thought of, going to a hotel and using the stuff that they have there, or, eating at certain restaurants and knowing the quality of the oils that they're using, or it's very hard to go back from that. So, but what we put on our bodies is just as important as what we put inside,
For sure. I
for sure.
agree.
And I do want to address another thing too. I think for women, since this podcast is geared especially for women, um, we are always worried about the aging aspect of skincare. So we kind of ignore the ingredients and some of the chemicals that are used because we think that it's going to make us youthful forever. So I have fallen susceptible to some of that as I'm getting closer to 40. And I would love to know what you think about like tallow, especially with tallow-based products. Do you think that they have anti-aging properties and they can preserve our youth? Or is it more of just, you know, taking care of yourself and trying to go about it that route?
Well, first off, I really believe that beauty comes within. So, one, your stress level and the foods that you eat are number one. We need to be taking care of our bodies. And I've fallen into that. 3 young kids, no sleep, eating off their plates what they don't eat. I've fallen into that, not being able to take care of myself as well. And I think there are seasons to that. Um, and I feel like I'm in a season now where I'm able to better take care of myself. But I think it's so important to definitely take care of ourselves from the inside out. And then secondly, I'm a huge proponent for tallow over conventional products for maturing and aging skin. And the reason why behind that is we might get a quick temporary fix from conventional products, but in the long run, we're putting toxins on our skin day in and day out. And eventually those the that skin is going to look more aged. And so with tallow, we're actually feeding our skin cells. And so it might take longer. You might have to be more consistent and you might not notice as drastic of a change as quickly. But over time, women that I know who have done ancestral skincare, whether it be tallow, lard, coconut oil, and avoided the, you know, conventional products at 60, at 65, at 70 have way better looking skin. Their skin is more radiant. It has less wrinkles. There's less sag. Their muscles haven't atrophied as much, so they look more youthful. I'm a
I
tallow
love
proponent
it.
all the way because
Yeah.
you're feeding your skin cells with fat soluble vitamins. There's nothing else on this earth besides animal-based products that feed our skin fat-soluble vitamins in the same in the way that tallow does.
Yeah. Yeah.
No plant oils, no olive oil, no coconut oil, no jojoba. Nothing is going to give you the same amount of nutrition as animal-based products.
Yep.
And so to me, when you source your tallow, you want to look for tallow that's coming from grass-fed farms, obviously not conventional, not from the grocery store in the back, CAFO cattle,
Yes.
because we know that toxins are stored in our fat. And
Mhm.
the same thing with animals. Their toxins, the things that they consume are going to be stored in their fat. And that's the opposite of what we want to be putting on our skin.
Yep.
So grass fed, first and foremost. Second, the rendering process is so important. So there's so many ways to render the tallow and get that liquid gold that you're looking for.
Mhm.
And it can be hexane process, super high heat extracted. There's like wet rendering where they add water to it and it's less shelf stable. And then there's what we do, which is really low heat and really long. It's not as fast, it's not as easy, but
Yeah.
you're preserving all of the fat soluble vitamins in the tallow. That's important. And
Wow.
so you want, not, so I guess I'm saying that not all tallow is created the same.
Mhm.
And, there's been times at Toups, so they were like, well, wouldn't it be so much easier if we just rendered the tallow this way?
Mhm.
And, I'm like, yeah, it would be way easier. That's right. But the tallow would not be as nutrient dense. And that's not what we're about. That's why people come to Toups because they use the tallow products and they see results.
Mhm.
And we want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So, a slow and low rendering process is really important too, especially if you're, a lot of listeners, sometimes they want to make their own tallow balms, which I am a huge proponent of. I love it. If you want to make your own, that's the greatest way to do that. And if you don't want to deal with it, then just get Toups and Co.
Yeah.
But yeah, I personally only use those kinds, tallow and Toups products on my own skin
Yeah.
and my sisters and my mom, and constantly, like, my mom is 61. She's 60. She's about to be 61. She's gonna kill me for saying she's a year older. But she has amazing looking skin. And I was like, well, what do you do? Like, what Toups products do you use? She's like, all I use is the tallow. That's it. I'm really simple. I don't have, and a little bit of makeup here and there for special occasions. And that's it. And I was like, well, I can only hope that my skin looks like yours when I'm 16. She's like, just keep using the tallow. I've seen such a difference. And we've, been using the tallow now on our skin for 10 plus years. And so I like to use her as a guide
Yes.
because she's
Yeah.
aging and using the tallow.
Oh, that is so inspiring. That's wonderful to know, because I think we feel like that, you see on social media and all the things where, you know, there's so many different methods of whether we're freezing our faces or trying to preserve,
Yeah,
and I think too, there's something around aging gracefully. And,
absolutely.
there that is a part of life. And I think that the concept of preserving our youth is overly saturating our, where it's putting so much pressure on women, where I'm seeing women younger and younger than even our age, that they're starting all of these regimens or, treatments or things. And I'm not here to, give any type of condemnation to anyone who does that. But I do think it's important to know that there's other options out there, and to think about it from a holistic, perspective before just jumping right into trying certain methods because we think that we have to be beautiful,
Yeah,
or
I
even
agree.
just, look presentable. Like maybe we don't even want to try to be beautiful. We just want to look okay for, our spouse or whatever.
I agree with you 100%. I really truly believe that women who age without um alterations to their face are so much more beautiful
Yeah.
than the ones that don't. And so,
Yeah.
and I like to use my mom as an example because she has never had anything done to her face. She doesn't do any kind of injectables or any of that. And I prefer the way she looks. And then we have people that we know that are similar in age who have done some of those things. And so I think, like my mom's even said, like, well, maybe if I was like, I love the way you look.
Yeah.
You look beautiful because it's just the natural. I like that when you smile, you have lines around your eyes. Like it just shows joy and a life well lived. And I think that
I
accepting
agree.
that is just really another important part of the message that we send to women.
Yeah.
Because with all the filters and all of this, AI and airbrushing there's like a skewed conception of what beauty really is instead of
Yes.
what a real body and a real face looks like. And so, that's really important to me. I hope that I model that to my daughters, that they see me age gracefully and they think it's beautiful. So that
I
they
love
accept that, they accept themselves the way they look and take care of,
Yeah.
I think it's important still to take care of your body.
Yes.
Um, but a natural and more holistic way is just as, if not more beautiful than
I
other ways.
agree. I agree 100%. And it's taken me a long time to really fully understand that. But the more I start to catch that glimpse of, and I think too that there's another aspect of the aging process and that gracefulness and that beauty that is truly from the inside out, is it's so much less stress than jumping around and always trying to try the newest
The next
thing.
thing. Yeah.
It never ends.
Yeah.
It never ends. There's always another product line or brand that's going to promise you the world. And then you try it and you're disappointed and you're like, it didn't work, or I had a reaction, or I look worse, or, and I think it's very consuming when, if your focus instead is on your health and, like you said, feeding your skin cells. Like I never knew what that even, I didn't even know you could do that. Like I never thought about how our skin truly is a living organ. I just thought of it as this, let's slather as much, lotion or whatever I can to keep, Estee Lauder or whatever I need to do, to just look young forever. But, taking care of yourself isn't just a beauty all on its own. And I love that that is such a big part of your message that goes beyond just the products, but you have such a bigger life-giving and educational piece of it for women and for, like you said, as moms and being the gatekeepers of our family and of our homes. Like, it's time we have to take that upon ourselves. And, stemming back to the story that you shared at the beginning of the episode where, when you were told there's nothing you can do, chances are, like, where there's a will, there's a way. Like, that's that old, it's kind of true though. I mean, like, why not try?
Right.
Why not?
Right. We didn't have anything to lose at that point.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly right. So I love that. And I also too, just super quick, because I know I could talk to you all day about this stuff. I am soaking all this in like a sponge. But I do really quickly would love to touch on the husband and wife team part, because I know that's an interesting dynamic. I know that was your heart and a big part of why you wanted to grow your brand and your business, was so your husband could, not have to be away so much. So now you guys really team up and work together. So how does that look like for you guys with 5 children too?
Yeah,
On top of
I
6?
can honestly say that it is so fun. Is it great every single day? No. People argue and they get, in spats, or we disagree or how something should be done. And so we just had to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do this part and you're going to do this part. And these are the parts that we're going to do together. And I think we even took out a notebook and it was like Emily and Trent.
Yeah.
Emily's responsibility, Trent's responsibility shared. And so it definitely took time and working on that. But I think we both had the willingness to work it out. And sometimes, I would be doing something for a while and it would be my responsibility. And I would go to him and say, I really wish you would take this over. Can you take over this part of it? And he was like, yes, if you can take the time to show me how to do it without getting aggravated that don't know how, then I will take it over. And so it was just a lot of learning and growing. But I think not only that, but it brought our marriage so much closer because we didn't have a choice. Like, in order for Toups to survive and make it, we had to also make it. And so we were like, okay, we're going to figure out how to work together every day and not bring in like home things and kids and into work. And then when work is over, shut it off. And then we have like home time, and we're not talking about other, things at work, like that's for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that helps us a lot. Like, we at 4:30, that's it. Like, I shut it down for the day, close the laptop, turn off Slack. And I'm like, hey, no more. I do not want to talk about work anymore. We can do it again tomorrow. And that's super helpful. And two, just yesterday, we were riding in the truck on the way back from the Toups property. He had picked up a tractor and we were bringing it back, and we were riding together and we were talking. And I was like, this is what I had envisioned way back then, is that we were running Toups together. Whatever we had to do that day, we're doing it together. I had my laptop out. I was hotspotting and working, and he's on the phone managing, people, and we're bringing a piece of equipment from one spot to another. And it just dawned on me while I was riding there. I was like, this is what I prayed for. This is what the goal that we have. And I think sometimes it's hard to see that you're in the spot that you prayed for so long. Because then now, you're like, oh, well, now we need to do this, or like this is coming up. And you're like looking towards the future without sitting in and relishing that you're like actually in the spot that you climbed and worked so hard to get to. And so we kind of just like sat in silence for a second, and we were like, yeah, this is it. Like, you're home and I'm home, and we're together on a Tuesday. And that's what we prayed for, that we could run this business together and do it well.
Yeah.
And,
living that dream.
I don't like saying that, like, living a dream. The only reason is because like not every day is dreamy. Some days are sunshine and rainbows, and some days are hard. And it's the getting through the hard part, and having communication. And honestly, doing everything as unto the Lord is going, if you do that if you approach every task and you say, I'm going to do this as unto the Lord, then it's so much easier, because then I'm not doing it for someone else, or like that you come at it in a different heart space. And that and I don't always come at it in the right heart space.
Mhm.
But I do try, and he does try as well. And I think that at the end of the day, like if we had a rough day and we're arguing about something was delivered and they delivered in the wrong spot, and we're like, hey, you know what? I'm actually not aggravated with you. I'm
Yeah.
irritated at the situation, and I'm sorry that I
Mhm.
took it out on you. And it
Yeah.
took us so long to get to that point.
Yes. Yeah.
But December is our anniversary. We'll have been married for 15 years this year. And so my younger sisters who are like 2 years into their marriage or 5 years in, they're like asking me questions, and I'm like, it just takes time. Continue to build and invest in your marriage, and especially when you're working together, it adds like this whole nother level. But I wouldn't want it any other way. I really do love it, and it's great. It's great when it's great, and it's great when it's hard too. So I'm just really thankful and feel really blessed to be able to work with him.
That's wonderful. And I love that you mentioned too about, designating that time where, hey, this, we're not going to talk
Yeah,
about work, because it tends to, kind of all mesh together if we let it.
yeah,
And
for
sometimes
sure.
it just happens. My husband and I joke about that a lot. Now we can joke about it. But like you said, in the beginning stages, I look at where we are now as opposed to where we were when we first started working together. We talked about that actually earlier this morning, and he could see that I was getting a little bit wound up and stressed. And he literally took my hand and he grabbed me and took me into the other room where it was quiet. And he said, "You just need to breathe for a couple of minutes. And we're just going to not think about or talk about anything and just look out the window and look at our beautiful canal and all this stuff, be in that moment and think about, like, this is what I prayed for. Like you said, this is what I prayed for. We get to do this together." And before, like years ago, if you fast, like rewound, we would have probably been ripping each other's, at each other's throats, like, getting on each other's nerves. And it is a time thing. It does take time. And that communication, like you said, it's super important too. Is, hey, I didn't mean to take that out on you. This is what happened. I think a lot of times we have a tendency to not be transparent about what we're feeling or how something affected us, or the kids are being really loud. I can't take this phone call, and you're running to the other room and they pick that moment to start banging on the door, and all the things. It's just it's life. And I used to get so stressed out about it and think that it was the end of the world if I was on a call and my kid was screaming in the background.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, oh, sorry, we're in between, or we're doing this, or we're not at the office right now. And I've learned some things we make such a bigger deal than it really is. And the other night I had this verse out of nowhere that I had read a long time ago. But you read things in the Bible, and sometimes God will just bring it to light and just impact you. And it was that verse that says, "Take no thought for tomorrow will take thought for the things of itself." And I remember when I would read that thinking, how do you do that? Like, that's not practical. And I live by my schedule. Like, everything's scheduled out till the end of this month and next month. And, it's like, how do you do that? And I was lying awake the other night and that scripture came to me, and I started to understand. And I felt like God at that moment gave me so much insight into what I think he means by that is to live for today, because we don't know what tomorrow holds. And there are no guarantees that even our best plans aren't going to get messed up, or the kids aren't going to get sick, or something's, going to change in the weather, or anything. Like, life is not always predictable. And because we're so worried about all those things, we miss out on the moments. Like you said, when you're sitting there and you're with your husband and you're like, just, on that ride, and you're like, wow, like,
Yeah,
I'm just going to sit.
here.
Yeah. I think that's so important. So I love that you shared that. Yeah, that's really good. So to kind of wrap this all up, again, I'm so honored that you would come on and share your story behind Toups Co. your heart behind your mission and, these powerful insights. But is there any last words that you want to just impact on our listeners today, or maybe someone who is just learning on getting started on a healthier journey? What words of wisdom do you have?
I really like to emphasize that when you know better, you do better, and to not really beat yourself up for what you don't know. And then when you starting out, it's okay to pick one product and change just the one thing. And then when you find that one, instead of trying to do them all at once, maybe it's just deodorant, because that, to me, for women, putting aluminum like near our breasts is probably one of the best things that we can do, is switch that out first. Yeah. So like, let's say you choose deodorant and you're looking, you find one, and then, or two or three, and you've tried different ones and you finally get the one that you like. Well, now you don't have that decision to make ever again. You know what you like, you know where you can get it, and you know how to get it. And so that is a decision that you never have to make again. And so then when you're ready, you can go to the next thing. It could be laundry detergent. And you go, you find one, you like it, and then you move on, instead of like this throwing everything out and I don't know where everything is and trying to tackle, where do I get everything? It's so overwhelming all at once, because I truly believe that the stress of worrying about that is almost worse than the toxins, because you've been using it for so long, and this added stress is what's the word that I'm looking for, is it's not stress enough how bad stress is for us. It is so incredibly bad for our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health. It presents physically. And so don't worry about it. I'm in like all these groups online, and they're freaking out about all these things, and people are constantly just like so stressed and having so much anxiety about what they're going to choose to eat or what they're going to choose to put on their kids. And instead of stressing about it, I just think it's so important to know better and do better. Choose one at a time. Be direct about it with yourself. So don't stop. Keep going, but just bite one at a time, and then keep going, and not to stress about what you're currently using, but to have hope for the changes that you'll make in the future. And anyways, I think that it can be stressful because they don't maybe have the education to make that decision for themselves. But when you feel empowered that you are educated to make those decisions for yourself, kind of that stress and anxiety goes away. And so, I think education just comes into that, and it's just so important.
Yeah.
And it can be really simple.
Yes. Well, thank you for giving us permission to not feel, because I think when we are stressed out, you have a tendency to freeze up and not do anything, because you're so afraid you're going to do the wrong thing, or you can't do everything all at once. And you do have to give yourself, it's a process.
It is.
And unfortunately, we just live in a world too, where we're bombarded with it on every turn. Like it's the hidden things. It's like, and if you think about it too much, it's a lot to process, but start small. Small steps are so huge, and the changes, and that has a ripple effect on everything else. Just like you said, figure out what is something super important that I know for a fact is not good for my body or good for our family that I could change tomorrow. And starting there, and like you said, the educational part of it is so huge. So I appreciate that you're leaving us with, like, we just take a deep breath and just, it's okay. Like, don't stress out. I think that's wonderful and such a great message. So for those of you watching, I will be sure to link all of this in the show notes. And I personally, like I said, I have tried pretty much everything that you have and have loved it so much. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation today. So what an honor. Thank you again for spending time with us, Emilie. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Well, friends, I just want to thank you for listening today. And if this show has meant something to you, please leave a review or rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Also, make sure you follow the show. This helps me continue bringing episodes like this where women can share their stories and link arms together. I hope you feel inspired and refreshed. Now get out there and hustle, girlfriends.